here we go. Quarterback position, of course. Before we move on to 2024, Jordan Travis, of course, we've seen him from the very beginning when he transferred in, took over the job, had some rough patches, had to learn the position, develop his skills as a passer, and now he walks off as a legend.
He was a legend, and he's going to stay a legend in Tallahassee just because of how you said he developed and became a better quarterback year by year. And he came in from Louisville, guy that at first we all thought was just a running quarterback. How is he going to get the ball to these wide receivers? And he did a good job of gaining the respect from his teammates. He wasn't the biggest vocal guy, but he had to turn into a leader. And Mike Norvell coming in during his first year, looked at Jordan Travis and eventually gave him more of an opportunity. He wasn't expected to be the starter right away, and Mike Norvell believed in him. And now to see him with Coach Tokars and what they were able to do developmental wise in the passing game was huge. And I remember talking on your show a while back of how he was going to be connecting with his wide receivers deep, intermediate routes, accuracy. Those are all things that we were critiquing him on early on in his FSU career. And the season that he was having, kind of a slower start, was a little hindered at the beginning of the season. I don't think he was fully healthy, but once we got into that middle part of the season, then definitely the latter half before he got injured at the North Alabama game, he was cooking and he was really looking good out there. And at the time was a Heisman contender. I think a lot of people forget that. And obviously it showed too when we, went through the college football playoff and Florida State didn't get invited. The main reason for that was Jordan Travis not being available. If Jordan Travis is available on this team, 125% Florida State goes to college football playoff. So that's how much he meant to the team and everything. And it just so happened Florida State, that was the excuse for the playoff committee, along with a lot of media members out there. And so Jordan Travis, I think FSU fans are going to miss him this upcoming season. We know we have a vet coming in that we'll talk about here in a second, but Jordan Travis, super fun player to watch as just a fan of you with college football, Mark. I know just watching him as a player, super fun on the field, but as a guy in the community, someone that represented Florida State well, I mean, there's not anything better that you can get. And something that Florida State fans needed from a quarterback after going through a handful of guys that had a lot of roller coaster rides, both on the field and off the field.
Yeah, so we get to the next guy, and in college football these days, what comes around goes around. So a guy that was quarterbacking for what was at the time the best team and the best program in the conference, and facing Florida State a couple years later after a pit stop, all the way across the country in Corvallis, Oregon, shows up. And so this is a very familiar name to Florida State fans, DJ Uiagalelei, that we all had to learn to pronounce a couple years ago. But man, he is a cagey old veteran at this point. And who would have thought, if we would have talked about this like 2 or 3 years ago, DJ is going to be Florida State's starting quarterback? That would have been crazy.
It's freaky. It is absolutely freaky to think of. And having that time with Dabo Swinney, things didn't work out as planned there. Gets a chance at Oregon State. Does some things really nicely statistically, had some highlight plays there, and put up a lot of wins for them as well in this last season. But now gets the opportunity to come down to Florida State, which, as we know, Florida State and Clemson, that has turned into a rivalry. And now he'll be able to face them this upcoming season at home. And Doak Campbell Stadium, expected to be most likely a primetime matchup, 8 o'clock kickoff. And that's got to be super exciting for DJ. He's a guy that, from what I've heard so far, arriving on campus, not the most talkative guy, kind of how Jordan Travis was when he first arrived. And I don't think that's something that Mike Norvell is expecting him to be, definitely in a short time span that DJ is going to be in Tallahassee. The biggest thing is earning the respect on the field, and hearing a lot of positive things about him so far, just in the way that he was in workouts and the way that he was going about representing himself and getting to know a lot of the teammates. That's just exactly what you expect from where, Mike Norvell has found most of his success in the transfer portal, bringing in guys that mesh really well in that locker room. That means a lot in building the culture, and that Florida State continues to work on. But DJ fits that mold, and now it's just earning that respect on the field and seeing where things go. Is this a quarterback competition? Is he coming into a quarterback competition? That's not been something that is solidified from, Mike Norvell. It's definitely still where, we'll talk about him. Brock Lynn going into his second year, he's going to get an opportunity with those first team reps in spring camp. But where is DJ going to sit in all of this? And I think for Florida State, I think you're in a pretty good spot to where you like DJ coming in with his veteran leadership, his play, understanding the college scheme, defense, reading defenses. I think that helps a lot with what you've got in the younger room and that quarterback room after losing AJ Duffy and obviously Tate Rodemaker in that transfer portal. You've got some really serious young talent, and then you've got a veteran that's been in the college game for multiple years at the starting position. So this gives, I think, Florida State a really good opportunity to have these younger guys learn behind DJ, who has a really strong arm and is someone that hopefully can build that chemistry in a little short bit of time before we get to fall camp.
You mentioned the strong arm. Yeah, he came into college football as a 5-star. A lot was expected of him. He had 2 starts in relief of Trevor Lawrence, and he lit it up. So then the expectations were, through the roof, and he didn't necessarily hit those. He hit 57% of his passes last year. He's not necessarily been a high percentage player at quarterback. He's a runner like Jordan Travis, but a much different runner. He's just a big dude that will knock over safeties and linebackers in the open field. So just a bit of a different player, but in some aspects, he's similar to Jordan Travis in that he still is developing the passing skills and he provides that running threat.
That's going to be probably my biggest question mark this spring camp, and definitely if we go into that game in Ireland. I'm watching really the offensive line. They've got to step up a little bit here, because you go back to Jordan Travis's play, 210 pounds compared to now DJ. He's added on 10 pounds, 255. That's bigger than Ben Roethlisberger, my guy back there, former great with the Steelers. That's 10 more pounds than what Big Ben was playing with. Yeah, a lot more athletic weight, I will say, than Big Ben, and he can run. Big Ben was not having any part of that if he didn't have to. But still, the offensive line, at least starting off in seasons for FSU the last couple of years, kind of takes a couple games, takes about 3 games or so for them to find a rhythm there. And luckily, you do have a lot of veterans coming back on that offensive line, but they've got to be able to protect DJ, because they're going to, I would expect for this offense, the scheme's going to change a little bit behind DJ if they, expect to go with him heading into Ireland. It's going to change a little bit, because Jordan Travis was so evasive. He was so elusive. He could get out of those situations where you'd have pass rushers already in the backfield. Sometimes if there has been some miscommunications on the front line, Jordan Travis could save those plays. That's why he was a contending Heisman quarterback. So that's something I'm going to be monitoring. This offensive line's got to stick. And talking with Coach Atkins at the media luncheon to kick off spring, that's something that I think they want to be more solidified at the front, instead of having a kind of revolving door with changing up guys and the way they're running the scheme. And, luckily, you have some hybrid offensive linemen, but they've got to protect DJ and allow him to use that arm, because that's what he's talented at. And he's got to improve too, like you were saying, as a passer, and he's still someone that needs to be developed, but he's just not going to be the same guy that you had Jordan Travis wise, running wise. Downhill, that's a whole different player. Yeah, he's really impactful there, and he damages defenses that way, but he's not your best guy and saving plays whenever things are getting disrupted through that front line. So that's something that I'm going to be monitoring as we go into the rest of this spring camp, but this fall camp, and seeing how this offensive line is predicated in protecting DJ.
So, of course, Logan, we got the chance to see, as you mentioned, Brock Glenn down the stretch last year when Travis went down. Your thoughts about how he performed, what he needs to work on, what kind of player he is, and maybe what kind of shot he has to pull off the upset and win the job.
Could you imagine? Yeah, Brock Glenn, someone that we didn't expect to see any of last year whatsoever. Former Ohio State commit, and Florida State brings him over and says, "Oh, you're coming. You're flipping over here to Florida State and Coach Tokars." And I really liked what I saw from Brock Glenn and the time that we had him early on. I mean, the Florida game, you can't grade anything from that. You're thrown into the fire, but I just liked the courage and the mindset of, let's don't sit here and think about it or get worried. Let's go out there and try to make a play. And, as a true freshman, that's really intriguing to me. And you feel really good about him and his mental state. That's what I look at first, mental state of the player. Other things that can be developed. Coach Tokars has done a really good job. What we saw with Jordan Travis, but also to Tate Rodemaker, developing him as a player, as a guy reading defenses, and of course developing with the arm. But that thing will take care of itself. But then we also saw the growth from him going from that Florida game, saw some things there in the ACC championship with some growth, but more importantly, once he had more time, because if you think about it, he only had another week, and then you're thrown into the fire against one of the top defenses at that time with Louisville, who was really impressive. They only had a week of that in preparation, and two, you thought, all right, well, Tate Rodemaker, is he going to be able to play, and all that? That whole kind of quarterback situation was all up in the air. So now you have more time going into the Orange Bowl. I thought we saw some strides with him. You're facing Georgia. I mean, you're facing the Georgia Bulldogs. You're facing Kirby Smart. I want nothing to do with it, but Brock Glenn goes out there and he keeps that same mindset, and it's a game to be played. He's going out there to play, and we saw some strides be made. And I thought growth-wise, that stood out to me. And this kid can be developed, which is good, and it creates for a really impressive quarterback room. And we'll talk about Luke Kromenhoek, the new true freshman. I think I named Brock Glenn as probably being one of the most improved players this spring camp, just because the way that he listens well, and he does a good job of understanding things and learning from his mistakes. And we saw that from game, and those three that we saw him in to finish off that 2023 season.
So Logan, looking at the running back room, of course, there are great players that are departing this team to the NFL draft all over the place, including Trey Benson, who comes in from Oregon, turns into one of the best backs in college football. Roydale Williams from Bama had a nice season there, certainly contributed in a big way with about 500 yards rushing. Lawrence Toafili seems like he's been around forever. There's Rodney Hill. There's a pretty good group of running backs.
Trey Benson, losing him, that's going to be something that FSU fans will feel a little early on in this 2024 season when we get there. But this is just spring, and specifically staying on what we think will happen and this. Mike Norvell is not going to change up things with the way that he runs that running back room. And Coach Johnson, David Johnson, Florida State's running backs coach, they're not going to change how you just designate one running back, and that's how it's going to be for that week alone, definitely not the season. So it's just going to depend on the game scheme. But right now in the spring, it's time to see what you've got with Lawrence Toafili whenever you give him more carries at that RB1 kind of situation, RB1A, then RB1B with Roydale Williams, who I think is expected to have a pretty impressive spring. He put on some size too, put on another 10 pounds. He's at 225. Coach Storm's doing some good work with him and the weight room, physical back, different kind of build than what you have with Lawrence Toafili. And I think too, Mike Norvell is not going to try to mess up things with LT. I think he knows the attributes that he gets from him with a pass catching kind of ability. There's another running back too. Cam Davis is someone I'm keeping a close eye on, of getting some early playing time in his career at FSU. Not a whole ton of true freshmen have been able to come in and shine early in their careers and the running back room, just because there's always been talent. Coach Yak does a really good job of bringing in those guys. Cam Davis is super, super impressive. I think Cam Davis, FSU fans should be salivating that he's in garnet and gold, and that he's going to be playing for FSU the next couple of seasons. And because they know, he was one of the early commitments with Luke Kromenhoek in that class. And, he was a pivotal part in building that class as well. But Cam Davis, super, super explosive, kind of an all-around back, really intelligent as well. I know Coach Yak is really excited to see more out of him. But this room too had a couple of newcomers. We'll see what they do with Jalen Lucas, Indiana transfer. Early parts hearing so far, he's going to be utilized. He's going to be utilized quite a bit, and that speed is something really impressive, both on the special teams as well. But super interested to see how Mike Norvell does this, because it just didn't seem to really work out with what they used to do with Corey Wren. They tried doing a few things here and there. Maybe it just didn't fit the offensive scheme and what they were trying to do. But Corey Wren was another really big speedster, and it didn't really fully click there. I'm interested to see how they're going to switch up some things here with Jalen Lucas. And, they kind of like how they were doing Ja'Kai Douglas, who's at that wide receiver slot position, kind of hybrid guys, and you can put them around and put them in motion and just use their speed to the best of their ability as an offensive scheme. So there's some impressive things. You got Keziah Holmes in there as well, Samuel Singleton, who was a true freshman last year. Keziah Holmes, really fighting for some playing time here, the former Penn State running back. So got to have a big spring from him as well to jump up in those in that depth chart.
Logan Robinson's here, everyone. We're breaking down the offense and the defense. We do this every spring. We do it every summer going into the season. So we always appreciate Logan stopping by, one of our originals here, the voice of college football. All right. Wide receiver, that tandem of Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson was special. Florida State's known going back to the Bobby Bowden days and when he first built this into a dynasty for speed and elite wide receivers. And then they hit about a 10-year period. I'm not going to say that they didn't have wide receiver talent, because they did, but not at the level outside of maybe one or two guys. And then they put that tandem together as two transfer portal additions. And of course, that's something Mike Norvell has done as well as anybody in the country. But those two guys move on. And so the exciting names are a guy that I don't know how many shows we spent with you talking about Destin Hill. And it looks like he's going to be playing out of the slot. He caught a few passes last year. But everybody's excited, of course, about Hakeem Williams. And so I'll let you take away the running back or the wide receiver room for us.
Yeah, Hakeem has probably been one of the most talked about players going into this spring camp, and he's deserved it just off of some things that we've been hearing, some rumblings ever since the latter half of last season. We saw him shine a little bit there in his touchdown and saw, whoa, where'd that speed come from? Because at the beginning of this time last year, he came in out of shape, bigger guy, just things weren't in the mold of what he wanted to be body wise, and was slacking a little bit just with his body. He was a true freshman coming in, and Coach Storms had to do a lot of work with him. And now it's fully worked out to where Hakeem, just looking at some of the photos of him in strength and conditioning and the weight room, he's done a really good job with his body. And I thought he really dialed in the latter half of last season, and it's only extended into beast mode going into this spring camp. And they're expecting a lot from Hakeem Williams. It's hard definitely to jump into that rotation like it was last year. If Hakeem Williams was playing and starting and getting as many plays as last year, then something was going on with the group that was in front of him. And you're not going to pass up Johnny Wilson or Keon Coleman, Kentron there as well, Ja'Kai Douglas. Like, it's just, you don't want a true freshman just jumping in there like that, as it's hard as a true freshman at the wide receiver position as a whole in the college level to do so. So this allowed Hakeem to sit back, learn, also get developed as well. And now it's his time to shine, but there's still some more work to be done. But Hakeem Williams, there's a lot to like, and I'm interested to see with his growth, how much that goes there alongside with Destin Hill, who, like you said, we talked about him on the show. It was everybody's questions, a weekly update on Destin Hill. Where is he? Where's the unicorn? Well, he's here. He's been one of the most probably fan favorites since the offseason, just been all over social media and been hyping up his teammates and all these weightlifting workouts. He, to me, might be the most just naturally gifted, talented wide receiver in the room, just the way that he can be a playmaker. He might be one of the biggest playmakers on this team. It's just kind of got hindered last season. Also a true freshman. It's hard to see the field at the collegiate level at the wide receiver room. And definitely what the amount of talent that we're about to see in the NFL draft and that wide receiver room go. So, Destin Hill, those two cats, it's going to be super fun to see them in year two. They're going to be utilized a lot. Mike Norvell and the scheme that they're going to run behind him with Ron Dugans. Shout out to the Donk. Love him. I think what they've been able to do to revamp that room is huge, and that's got to continue going into the next couple of seasons. And, just looking at this room, you're going to have these guys for a couple more seasons as well.
We didn't even get to a guy that's listed right now on the spring depth chart as a starter in Kentron Portier. Yep. And you mentioned Ja'Kai Douglas as well. Do you think they're going to get passed by, or are there going to be plenty of targets for those guys?
I think there will be plenty of targets. The biggest thing for Kentron since his early career, not really last year as much, sort of was, but staying healthy. That's the same thing for Darion Williamson as well. Just staying healthy is the most pivotal thing for them, because for them both, because they have the most experience. Deuce Spann is also in this conversation of just more getting down the playbook than anything, understanding where you need to be route running wise. That's something that I know is something that has to be worked on with him as a player. Ja'Kai Douglas, extremely good deep threat for Florida State, and interested to see too his big jump this spring, added on another 10 pounds there. So interested to see if he can carry on that weight with his speed. But, you've got Malik Benson too, this Alabama transfer wide receiver. Used to be number one JUCO, committed to Alabama, was there last year, then, got a whole staff change over there with Nick Saban calling retirement. And he gives a shot and coming down here to Ron Dugan's and Mike Norvell's offense. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Malik Benson starting pretty early on for Florida State in this wide receiver room, and I wouldn't be crazy shocked to see him be a starter in week 1 in Ireland, which might be maybe I don't think it's really a hot take at this point. We've only been through a couple little scenes here of camp, but Malik Benson, I've heard, has been very, very, very impressive. And then just one more or two more guys. This thing is loaded, Mark. It's just stupid loaded. But two names to keep an eye on here: Vondravius Jacobs and Camden Fryer. Camden Fryer finally got us a white wide receiver that's got some speed, got some strength, and is really good in the slot and can be really shifty. So finally got one of those. Clemson has had a few of those in the past. Shout out Hunter Renfro and all those guys. But Florida State finally got him one of those, legacy guy with Camden Fryer, his dad playing for Florida State. But I absolutely love that kid. I don't know how much playing time he'll get this upcoming season, but man, FSU fans are going to salivate about that player. And then Vondravius Jacobs, he'll go for any ball, any day. Doesn't matter which DB, which safety, whoever's crashing down on him, come to lay a hit. This kid risks it all for the ball. And, Vondravius Jacobs has some crazy hands, and I'd like to see him now fully healthy in the spring get back to what he showed us this last year. Hopefully put on a little bit of size. This room's just loaded. You've got veterans in here that understand the system. You've got newcomers like a Malik Benson. Jalen Lucas will go in the slot sometimes too, and what they want to do with scheme wise. And then newcomer like Camden Fryer. But there's some year 2 guys with Vondravius Jacobs who lit up one of the top wide receivers, the top wide receiver in Florida, and his time with Hakeem Williams and Destin Hill. DJ, that's a reason probably why, DJ wanted to come to Florida State. You should be licking your chops at what you have at the wide receiver room.
It is impressive. Benson caught 13 balls for the Tide last year, 162 yards and a touchdown, and Jacobs got on the field enough for Florida State for 3 catches, 60 yards last year. We're talking up FSU football on both sides of the ball with Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. We're breaking down the offense, and we're getting to the important guys up front. So let's not forget about no. Let's not forget about the tight ends.
Oh, yeah.
Jaheim Bell, he moves on. Kyle Morlock, I remember you touting his signing when he transferred in, that he was going to be a key piece, and he caught 19 passes last year.
Yep. Jaheim Bell gone, had a really impressive combine. He's going to get drafted by whoever can fit in his kind of play to whichever NFL team he goes to offensively. But now you're left with Kyle Morlock. You've got a 5-star with Landon Thomas, player that was committed to Georgia, flips back over to Florida State. And then you got Jackson West, who's put on a lot of size, probably looking to be a blocking tight end. You lost also to Marquiston Douglas from the last couple of seasons. He's gone. He hit the transfer portal, and some of that that hurts this room the most probably. And looking in this preview, this room is certainly, to me, sort of concerning, just because Landon Thomas, I'm going to see more out of him in 2025 than I'm going to see in 2024, because I just don't have the expectations of that. You got a guy like Jarrell Powers, though, that has been in the program, who can take that next step. Actually lost a little bit of pounds this spring camp, but I think could be a pass catcher for Florida State moving forward with Kyle Morlock. And then you've got a guy like Brian Courtney, who, hearing some good things about him in spring camp. I'm trying to understand how, where he fits in this tight end room. But this is something that Coach Thompson, the tight ends coach for Florida State, got to figure out here how to rearrange the pieces while also replacing pieces with what you had last year with Jaheim Bell and Marquise Douglas. Marquise Douglas was a pivotal role a lot in the blocking scheme. Also, too, shout out to Biscuit, man. He could also catch some passes as well. But this room, at least going into the spring, concerns me a little bit, and we'll see if there's going to be any moves made in a transfer portal here. The size that was added on the Jackson West, adding on those pounds. I don't have the numbers here on me, but I know he added a significant amount of size. That's someone that I would expect that they're prepping to be in one of their blocking tight ends going into this upcoming season.
Logan, I'm counting 5 offensive linemen coming back that had pretty significant snaps, including the guy that's pretty much been the anchor there at center for the last 2 seasons, Maurice Smith, with 24 starts.
Big Mo coming back for his 18th season at FSU. No, I love that guy, and just for him, for the most part, this guy goes through and he battles, and people kind of forget how important the center position is. If we went back 5 years ago, man, the center position was extremely concerning, and some of the people that were in there and the inconsistencies, it was one of the most talked about position groups of being the worst. It was really declining, and so Maurice Smith comes in. It's easy to overlook offensive line in general, but as a center guy, leader, glue to the middle of that line, Maurice Smith has held his own for an undersized guy too. A lot of fans and analysts gave him a hard time and not expected him to start at FSU. He's just held his own, and he's done a really good job. If I went back to practices and watch how many times that he had to face Robert Cooper, Fabian Lovett, Joshua Farmer, he held his own, and that's why he's held on to his center position. And luckily, you got some guys behind him as well that are going to see some, hopefully not playing time, because you want to have Maurice Smith be healthy. But in case there were to be, there's some guys that came in like Richie Leonard, who's probably going to be at that right guard position from Florida. There's some guys at that center position around him that can step in place if need be. But like I was saying earlier, Mark, I want to see this group turn into we need some hard glue here. I didn't like the whole shifting around last year. I understand, yeah, guys get injured, and it was good that you have some depth pieces, and Darius Washington is a hybrid guy, but I would really like to see a solidified offensive line that you have on a consistent basis. If you don't have any kind of health problems there, would love to see that group stay consistent with where they're at. But yeah, Darius Washington, going to be interested to see which place that he ends up starting. He was just been super developmental throughout his career at FSU. Keandre Jones comes back, former Auburn transfer there, probably that left guard position. Bryson Estes is right there behind him, one of the strongest players on the team, if not the strongest. And then right tackle with Jeremiah Byers coming back. Kind of had a hit or miss season last year. I think had to get used to the competition a little bit. But Jeremiah Byers at that right tackle, Julian Armella kind of testing out the waters there at right tackle, leaving left tackle. Was sitting behind Robert Scott last year at left tackle, at least in this time in camp. So a lot of returnees, a lot of veterans in this group, which probably also played a role for DJ picking FSU. Just staying healthy will be key for them, because the whole shuffling thing last year, yeah, Coach Atkins was impressed by it, and that's what they had to do on an almost week-to-week basis. But I'm sure he would like to lock down a starting 5 and try to keep that consistently. Knock on wood, health-wise, everything goes fine.
Check out Logan's work at Noel Game Day and everything that they've got available there, covering Florida State football. And, of course, right here at the Voice of College Football as well. We've got our Wednesday night show at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Logan comes on right after, right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern, right, on Wednesdays.
Yes, on the late night crew over there at 7 o'clock. So if you want to hear some more FSU stuff, come hang out with us as we talk some more spring camp.